Okay, welcome back everybody. This lesson's a little bit longer than some of the other ones, but I'm going to go through this and make sure we make the best use of our time. Today we're doing Amplify, lesson, unit 8A, subunit 2, lesson number 5. What this unit is about is kind of how to explore and show people what's going on using vivid details. What this lesson is about is slowing down and zooming in. What we mean by that is whenever we tell a story, it's very easy to end up kind of all over the place, right? Talk about this, talk about that. You know, in a conversation with friends, it's fine. We do that all the time. Nothing wrong with that. But when we're trying to tell a story to a reader, and we want the reader to be involved, to be invested, we need to be very aware of what details we use, of what things we talk about. We need those things to be important and relevant to the reader, okay? And so this lesson is going to be the first one that we start to go into the story Going Solo by Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl wrote James and the Giant Peach. Going Solo is an autobiographical telling of his life when he went to Africa. So he left England, got on a boat, went to Africa, and then ended up in the middle of World War II as a fighter pilot. It's a pretty cool story. It's got a lot of adventure, a lot of excitement to it. The very beginning part is the ship voyage. Be aware that the stuff that we're going to read today is in 3 completely different times, so it's not all continuous. Don't worry about that. When we get to the actual story later, you'll see that it goes a little bit differently. So, number 1, do your vocab. If you have not already done some vocab, do the vocab and then do the lesson, okay? You've got to make sure that you're spending some time every day doing it. This is the first week that I'm grading it, but you will see it on the Power School, so be aware of that. Okay. We're going to talk about reading closely. That's slide number 2. What is reading closely? Well, simply put, reading closely is the art of slowing down and getting right in the middle of the text, figuring out what the writer is saying, and more importantly, why the writer is saying it. Okay? There's a few different reasons that people publish information. They write something down, or that they tell somebody a story. Number 1, to entertain them. Number 2, to inform them, okay? And number 3 is to persuade them. And these 3 things oftentimes get very intermingled, okay? This year in the middle of an election, you're going to get times that people are informing you of things to persuade you. This guy's crazy. He did this. You should vote for me. Both things are happening. Entertainment usually stands outside of that, but every now and again, you'll see a TV commercial, and the goal of that commercial is to entertain you, but also to persuade you. The biggest proponents of that I always see are the insurance guys and the beer guys, right? The Geico commercials are always meant to be silly and funny, but they also kind of keep running that same message, right? Talk to us, we'll save you money. Same thing's true of the beer ones, right? The beer ones are, especially during football season, right? They're all goofy and silly and all over the place, but they're like, hey, buy my stuff. That's it. So you need to be a consumer of these things that is aware of why are they doing it? What is their goal? What is their agenda? So reading closely, what we're trying to do is get a good skill set for slowing down and analyzing everything that's going on to be sure that we're taking the data properly. So I'm going to hit play, and I want you to be aware, you guys have this button on your devices at your house or wherever you're at. Anytime you see this little icon on the top, that means you can hit play. So I'm going to play it, and then it's going to read this whole thing to us.
She was eating an orange at the time, and I noticed suddenly that she was not eating it in the normal way. In the first place, she ate it from the fruit bowl with her fork instead of taking it in her fingers. And now, with knife and fork, she was making a series of neat incisions in the skin all around the orange. Then, very delicately, using the points of her knife and fork, she peeled the skin away in 8 separate pieces, leaving the bare fruit beautifully exposed. Still using knife and fork, she separated the juicy segments and began to eat them slowly, one by one with her fork. Do you always eat an orange like that? I said. Of course. May I ask why? I never touch anything I eat with my fingers, she said. Good Lord, don't you really? Never. I haven't since I was 22. Is there a reason for that? I asked her. Of course there's a reason. Fingers are filthy. But you wash your hands. I don't sterilize them. Miss Trefusis said. Nor do you. They're full of bugs. Disgusting, dirty things, Fingers. Just think what you do with them.
Okay, so on the second card, after the little reading here, it's got a couple of questions for us, okay? The first thing that it wants us to do is to learn how to use the highlighter. All you need to do is pick sections where the writer is telling you something and highlight them one color. I highlighted this section right here in yellow. Then, in a different color, they want you to highlight a showing. But I don't know the difference between showing and telling. Cool. Let's explain that right now. Showing is the act of making the reader aware of what's going on without explicitly telling them. An example, if I want to tell you that I'm angry, I'll say, I'm really mad about that thing. But if I were to show you that I was angry, right, I might have this look of rage and I might throw something on the table, or I might push a chair, push a table, or whatever I might do. But you're going to be aware that I'm angry. And I didn't tell you that I was angry. I'm showing you. Same thing is true in the writing. Showing is way more powerful than telling. And we really want to try to show people what we're thinking rather than to tell them. Now, bells still work. There are times that we want to tell because you want to be crystal clear about something. You don't want there to be room for inference. You don't want the reader to have the ability to say, well, I think he meant this. You don't want them to reword what it is that you're saying is going on. So, in this thing, a good moment of telling is she was not eating it in the normal way. That's telling. Then he shows us how she's not eating in the normal way. She speared it from the fruit bowl with her fork instead of taking it with her fingers. That's showing, okay? Very delicately, using the points of her knife and fork, she peeled the skin away in 8 separate pieces. That's showing, okay? So what you want to do is find the times that there's showing and find the times there's telling, and then highlight them. This is an important thing to do for 2 reasons. One, you want to learn how to use a highlighter. The reason the highlighter's handy is you're going to come across sections of this story and other stories that you remembered, that you particularly liked. And later on, you're going to want to reference back to those. And if you've highlighted those, it's going to be a lot easier for you. So I encourage you, use the highlighter, get comfortable with it. The second thing is, I'm going to look through it, and if you didn't do it, I'm going to say, hey, why didn't you do this? Do you need more instruction? And you're going to listen to me talk to you again. You don't want to do that. So, do the highlighting. Second. Okay, the third thing. The third thing is asking us to choose what details Roald Dahl uses in order to convey the scene, the emotion, the what's going on of the whole story. And we've got 3 different options here. Sensations. How does something see, smell, taste, feel? Okay? How does it look to us? Those are all sensations. Do we see that in this writing? Oh yeah, absolutely. Right? He talks about how delicately and slowly the person does something, right? That puts us a sense of feel almost. In addition, you can almost smell the orange, the way that she cuts it open and then peels it apart. You can almost smell what that would be like. Those are all definitely sensory. Actions. Does Roald tell us what somebody is doing? Does Roald say, this is what happened? Yeah, absolutely. He tells us exactly the way she pierces the skin, the way that she pulls it apart. We're right there. We're right in the middle of it. And the third thing that it asks us is, does he use dialogue? Yeah, there's a conversation between the 2 of them that uses dialogue. And so the reason that we use dialogue to put us in the middle of something is you guys already know this. You guys already do this yourselves, right? If you're in a conversation, like I saw lots of them last year, they hang out in the lunchroom, whatever, and you guys would be sitting around a table saying, oh yeah, so so-and-so was there, and so he said, and I was like, what? There's no way that's the case. That's dialogue. Dialogue's really, really handy to bring somebody in who wasn't there because they feel as though they were a partner or a participant in that conversation, even though it happened, whenever ago. They feel like they were there. So is there dialogue in it? Absolutely. So you're going to want to select all 3 of those things. I'm going to go ahead and go to number 3 now. Number 3 is a completely different section. So we're going to go ahead and read it.
I lay still on my bunk with my eyes half open. Below me, UN Savory was getting dressed. There wasn't room in the cabin for 2 of us to change our clothes simultaneously, so we took it in turns to go first. It was his turn to dress first tonight. He had tied his bow tie, and now he was putting on his black dinner jacket. I was watching him rather dreamily through half-closed eyes, and I saw him reaching into his sponge bag and take out a small carton. He stationed himself in front of the wash basin mirror, took the lid off the carton, and dipped his fingers into it. The fingers came out with a pinch of white powder or crystals, and this stuff he proceeded to sprinkle very carefully over the shoulders of his dinner jacket. Then he replaced the lid on the carton and put it back in the sponge bag.
Okay, so the scene that he's just set here right now is really specific. He's in his bunk on the boat, and he's watching his roommate get ready to go to dinner, right? The room's real small. There's no room for both of them to do this at the same time. So he's sitting there waiting his turn, and his roommate is being weird, for lack of a better term. He's sprinkling some kind of white powder on his shoulders, right? So it says that he reaches into a carton and he grabs a bit of it and he just very carefully places it on his shoulders. So he gets dressed in a really nice jacket, and then he sprinkles white powder on his own shoulders. That's unusual. But here's what's important about that. Number 1, is that a really focused description? Do you feel like you're there? You should, because I can see the whole room, right? Laying there on my bunk, kind of half asleep, looking at this guy thinking, what the world's going on there? It's very, very focused. So I think the answer there is yes. The second question is, how long did it take for this whole thing to take place? A minute? 2 minutes? You've got a few options that you can pick from. All you have to do is make your selection there. Then the third question is, how many sentences does he use to describe this action? Count them. It's not rocket science. And then the fourth, can you condense this action down to 1 sentence? Make an attempt and type it in that box down there, okay? That's what the goal is. When you're finished with that, we're going to go to slide number 3, which is another scene from a completely different time. The first 2 were on the boat. This one is not on the boat. This one is called the Battle of Athens, the 20th of April.
On that morning of the 20th of April, Flight Lieutenant Pattle, the ace of aces, who was leading our formation of 12 hurricanes over Athens, was evidently assuming we'll fly as brilliantly as he could, and he led us one hell of a dance around the skies above the city. We were flying at about 9,000 feet, and we were doing our very best to show the people of Athens how powerful and noisy and brave we were, when suddenly the whole sky around us seemed to explode with German fighters. They came down on us from high above, not only 109s, but also the twin-engine 110s. Watchers on the ground say that there could not have been fewer than 200 of them around us that morning. We broke formation, and now it was every man for himself. What has become known as the Battle of Athens began. I find it almost impossible to describe vividly what happened during the next half hour. I don't think any fighter pilot has ever managed to convey what it is like to be up there in a long-lasting dogfight. You are in a small metal cockpit where just about everything is made of riveted aluminium. There is a plexiglass hood over your head and a sloping bulletproof windscreen in front of you. Your right hand is on the stick, and your right thumb is on the brass firing button on the top loop of the stick. Your left hand is on the throttle, and your 2 feet are on the rudder bar. Your body is attached by shoulder straps and belts to the parachute you're sitting on, and a second pair of shoulder straps and a belt are holding you rigidly in the cockpit. You can turn your head and you can move your arms and legs, but the rest of your body is strapped so tightly into the tiny cockpit that you cannot move. Between your face and the windscreen, the round orange-red circle of the reflector sight glows brightly. Some people do not realize that although a hurricane had 8 guns in its wings, those guns were all immobile. You did not aim the guns, you aimed the plane. The guns themselves were carefully sighted and tested beforehand on the ground so that the bullets from each gun would converge at a point about 150 yards ahead. Thus, using your reflector sight, you aimed the plane at the target and pressed the button. To aim accurately in this way requires skillful flying, especially as you are usually in a steep turn and going very fast when the moment comes.
Okay, so this scene does a number of different things. The first thing that he does is he talks about where is he? Where is he is in an airplane above Athens. He is one of the fighter pilots, and at first there's a few of them up there, and that's about it. But then tons and tons of German fighters show up, and now it's a dogfight, and it's sort of, as he says, every man for themselves. So then he describes the inside of the cockpit, and I love the description. It's very precise. You can almost feel how metallic it is in there, right? The whole thing is aluminum and it's riveted together. You can feel like you're in the middle of it and how mechanical and tight and crowded everything is, right? The way that he's strapped in. So he does a really good job of describing the inside of this cockpit. Here's what the assignment that they want you to do on the second card is. Choose one sentence from this whole thing that really grabs your attention. Okay? Pick it, copy it, paste it. Does that sentence show you or tell you something? Doesn't matter, just pick one. You've got both and you now know the difference. The third, this is the fun part of it. Rewrite it. If you picked a section that's showing, change it, make it telling. If you picked a section that's telling, then change it and make it showing. I'll give you an example, okay? There is a plexiglass hood over your head and a sloping bulletproof windscreen in front of you. That's telling. Instead, I looked through the plexiglass hood. I was relieved at the presence of the bulletproof windscreen. It gave me a sense of security. That's showing. And it doesn't really matter which one is which. Both of them are needed, okay? But you have to pick one and then just rewrite it the other way. And the fourth question is, how does it change things? My retelling of that changes it from a statement of fact, there is a canopy, there is a windscreen. It changes it from that objective, this is a thing, to an opinion, the way that I felt about it, the emotion it conveyed. Does that make sense to you, I hope? You want your reader sometimes to know objective facts, and sometimes you want them in your head to know how you felt. That's what we're trying to do with good quality writing. So did it change it? Tell me how it changed it. Your writing assignment for today is, I think, a fun one. What we're talking about here is to pick somebody that you live with and pick a quality about them and then write a quick story. Now I'm going to give you one of the most important rules that I have about writing. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. If you don't want to tell me the truth, okay, it's not going to break my heart. I get it. You don't have to. If you want to make up a good story, make up a good story. If you want to tell me the truth, great. I'd love to get to know you guys. I tell, by and large, the truth when I make up my stories to you guys. So let me give you my example of how to do this. I, when I was your age, lived with my brother, Dan. He's my older brother. He's awesome. What character trait would I describe him as? Likeable. Beyond likable. Everybody likes my brother, okay? Here's an example of my brother being likable. When I came back from Montana for 9th grade to be in California, my brother was in 11th grade. When I went and hung out with him and his friends at lunch, there was this unbelievable community between him and his friends. So we stopped on the way to school and we got a watermelon and we got a loaf of bread and we got some cheap lunch meat because we weren't really rich or anything. And that's what we brought. And the other guys in the group brought other things, right? Somebody brought chips, somebody brought some type of orange drink or something. It was whatever people managed to get their hands on. And I remember I was like, okay, Dan, let's go to lunch, right? I was so excited because, I finally got to have lunch with my big brother. And so he's like, oh yeah, come with me. And so we start walking and I go out to the football field. and there's just this group of people. It's like 10 or 12 people. And everybody says hi to Dan, and they see, Lil Balker here tagging along. And he made this unbelievable effort to talk to everybody, say hi to everybody, catch up. Oh, this is my little brother Mike. You guys are gonna love him, blah, blah. And he talked to everybody. Nobody felt like an outsider in that group. It made that community work because my brother was so gifted at just making sure that every single person had some way to feel included, including me. The guy, I didn't belong, right? I wasn't an athlete like them. I just started wrestling, and they were all football players and basketball players, and I was out. But I was involved. That is my brother being friendly. That's what I want from you. Write your story here. I want it to be 120 words. It's not that hard, but I know that you can do it. If you want to make it up, cool. Pick somebody, write an interesting story. That's it. That's the extent of the video. I know this is a long one. Thank you guys for hanging in there. I will see you guys all in the next one. Be safe.